Today's show is really, really exciting for me. Why? Because it's Coach Patrick McNeal. Now, I've known him for over a decade, and I've watched him emerge as an amazing leader. And now, as a free man, he is utilizing the GOGI Life Tools in his place of employment per the permission of the CEO. So the entire company is engaging in the GOGI Life Tools. So stay tuned. You're going to love it. You're going to love to see how these tools are applicable to everyday life. And I'm so excited you're here.
Yeah, it's awesome and amazing to be here. And as you said, I've known you for over a decade. Became a coach inside, and so glad to talk about and show how the GOGI Life Tools are applicable, not just inside, but when you're on the outside as well.
Talk to me about how you first came to understand the GOGI Life Tools. How did you get introduced to the wonderful world of GOGI and all our life tools?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you, like many of the people inside, having a life sentence, people are saying, hey, do these groups and do these groups and that group. And it was around 2013, I believe. I was at Chino Prison, and there were people who were saying, oh, I went to the board and the board told me to do GOGI. And I'm like, what's GOGI? I've never heard of this GOGI. So being the person I am, I said, well, hey, if the board is asking for it, let me look into this and see what it's about. And so I found out about the book. I wrote and started saying, well, let me do this. Let me do GOGI if the board is asking for it. And I've done so many groups up to that point. And this was the first one when I got into it that resonated with me. So that's how I got into it. Of course, I started doing it to get my own certificates and to help better myself in order for my board. But then I loved it so much, I decided I started to teach it and become a coach, and just loved it and wanted to spread it to other people. And, I finally found a group that resonated with me and the things that I wanted to work on.
What talk to me about, you say it resonated with you. What made GOGI so different? And I hear this, honestly, I've heard it ever since 2002 when we first started listening to prisoners and allowing them to build the tools. What made GOGI so different? What was it that resonated with you?
Well, I could say for me personally, like a lot of the groups in prison may have a drug problem, or you may have this problem. And, I was fortunate enough that I didn't have, the gang problem or the drug problem, but I had a decision-making problem. I had a decision-making problem. So when I found GOGI, and it was about 12 tools for positive decision-making, that resonated with me so much because I didn't have to have that I had been a gang member. I didn't have to have that I was, had drug issues or any other particular issue. GOGI helped with whatever issues that I had. And I wanted to better my decision making because the mistakes that I made them while I was perfectly sober. So I couldn't blame it on substance. I couldn't blame it on gangs. I had to blame it on myself making poor decisions. And I needed something to help me make better decisions moving forward.
So what I hear you saying is that you lacked simple positive decision-making tools.
Absolutely. And that's what resonated with me.
You think that if you had been taught those tools as a youngster, the trajectory of your life might have taken different turns?
Oh, 1000%, because I look at the decisions that I made that made major turns in my life. And if I had said, is this decision powerful, productive, and positive, I would not have made certain decisions. If I would have said, what if I make another decision, I would not have made those poor decisions. So if I would have been the boss of my brain, I would not have made certain decisions to say, people made me act a certain way. It's their fault that I had to do this, or I acted, or I responded in a certain way. No, GOGI showed me that I'm the master of my decision making, regardless of what actions other people take. And so my life would not be in the place that the turn it took back then had I used the GOGI tools as a youth or growing up or as an adult.
We are in GOGI on tablets. I think it's like 1,500 prisons and jails. More than 1 million people have the opportunity to, for free, log on and actually see these videos and understand. But some of them are saying, well, they had a GOGI program there. That's never going to happen here. Not at this jail, not at this prison, not for me, not for this, not for that. Talk to me about when you left one institution and you were moved to another institution. How did you take GOGI with you? And the GOGI program really is self-initiated. Talk a little bit about when you got the transfer order and you were moved over to CCI and to Tehachapi in California. What was there apprehension? How did you take GOGI? Tell me about that story.
Well, I fell in love with GOGI at Chino. And then, of course, as you talked about, I was transferred to CCI. And when I got there, guess what? There was no GOGI program. So guess what? There was a group of individuals who were interested in their own rehabilitation. And I told them about GOGI. And, I still had my books and the studies I was doing, and I was teaching people. So there was a couple different things that happened. I started groups there, creating small groups on my own and just teaching people in the day room or on the yard. But then I also got with a group of people who, we talked to them and we went to staff and we helped form a GOGI group there. And with the books I had, we wrote out the curriculum and we started having GOGI groups there. And of course, it eventually became a group that we had staff sponsors coming in, and we grew from there. So you may not have it. There's several things you can do. You can study on your own. You can create small study groups of GOGI with positive-minded people or people who want to change. And you can approach your CRM and, the staff there and your other ILTAG groups. You can approach the sponsors there and see if they're willing to start GOGI groups there. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. If you want the knowledge and you're serious about bettering yourself, GOGI is available, and GOGI, you can grow it from no existing program that no one's ever heard from it to a program as we did at CCI, where you've got staff buy-in and sponsors and everything that goes along with that. So it's definitely possible, and yeah, you should do it.
I think you have an innate entrepreneurial spirit, and you don't get discouraged. Because I remember many of your letters were very discouraging. Oh, they aren't going to let us do this. They aren't letting us do that. They don't want us to do this. They don't want us to do that. But in every case, you came up with a solution. So the complaint was, the officers aren't letting us out. The solution was, so we decided to do it in ourselves. And we're sending kites back and forth with the GOGI tools. So when you came up to an obstacle, you would tell me this obstacle in a letter, and I was so frustrated, but you always backed that obstacle up with, and so what we're doing is, how important is it for someone to see an obstacle, realize it's an obstacle, and then find some modification or some way around it to be able to be of service? How important was that in you being a free man now?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that. Important to me being a free man, because like many of you who may be listening to this tape, I was sentenced to something and I was never supposed to be free. And now you can see behind me, I'm in my own apartment here,
I see
free.
some palm trees. You got palm trees going on in the background.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Living in paradise.
Yeah. And I will say this, that although I can talk about the discouragements, and you may be going through things that are discouraging to you, officers, saying, hey, what are you guys doing? Or what's this group about? Or you may not be able to get it going. You're not being let out. But you know what? I always took the thing, like, if the front door is closed, go through the window. If the window's closed, climb on the roof and go down the chimney. Where there's a will, there's a way. And especially when we talk about GOGI or improving yourself. So there's so many different ways to do it. And I was just a person that, yes, I can talk about what the barriers are, but then you have a responsibility to talk about how can you get around those barriers to get what you need. Yeah.
Yeah, very much getting out by going in.
Absolutely.
Making the solution within, because if the
Absolutely.
solution is within, there's always a direction. If the solution is outside of ourselves, then we run up against an obstacle and we just have to stop. How discouraging. But getting out by going in is the real true essence. And it got you to be a free man.
Absolutely, absolutely, because that same concept of the answers within me. If I had listened to what was outside of me saying, "You're never going to get out. You're going to die in there. There's no chance. Oh, you've got to go to board. You're claiming your innocence. They don't let people out with that." If I would have listened to that and not gone within and overcame all that negative stuff from the outside, I'd still be sitting there trying to get out. But I said, I don't care what anybody says. I'm going inside. I'm going to find the solution. I'm going to make these positive changes regardless of what they say, and I'm going to do what I have to do to achieve what I want to achieve. So whether that's starting a GOGI group and bettering yourself, or whether that's your fight to get out, you need to make a decision and go within yourself and do what you have to do. Go in to get out.
I
And that's definitely what I did. And you could see behind me that the fruits of that mentality.
So let's flash forward now. You're a free man. I do remember I was one of your very first phone calls when you did get out and you volunteered in the mailroom, and I've watched the trajectory. How long have you been out? And talk to me a little bit about what you're doing with permission from the company you work for. What are you doing now with your GOGI tools?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I got out in October of 2022. So, I mean, it's currently September of 2025. So it'll be 3 years here at next month, at the end of next month, it'll be 3 years that I've been out. I've changed, I've grown, changed a couple of jobs. I've volunteered in the GOGI mailroom. I've worked for Crop. I've worked for a company called Re-Evolution, Reentry Organizations. And now I currently work for a company called Rora. And this is not a nonprofit, and this is not a reentry organization. This is a real business who's made a commitment to hire formerly incarcerated people. And as I've embarked on this journey with Roa, it's been amazing because it's definitely different than the nonprofit world. But what I found is I've taken the GOGI tools with me along my journey. I didn't leave them at the door, because it doesn't end once you do get out of prison. The GOGI tools are applicable to your life. And what I really love is that the CEO and the COO of my company were, they would talk to me about what things I've been through. And naturally, GOGI came up, and I talked about that there's been nothing more important in my life that has changed me than GOGI. And they asked me, well, what's GOGI? I haven't heard about it. I'm an advocate of therapy, and I've never heard of GOGI, and I've studied so many things. I said, oh, well, I gave them the website, and I started talking to them about GOGI and what the tools mean. And, they loved it. And they looked it up, and they actually asked me, they said, you know what? I told them that I was a coach for GOGI, and they said, would you be willing to run a staff meeting and and talk about the GOGI tools during it? I said, sure, absolutely. So I didn't initiate starting it at my company, but by just spreading and talking about GOGI, my CEO asked would I start running these meetings. So we started off with our first meeting just a couple of months ago. And it was originally 45 minutes long. And even after the first two meetings, my CEO said, you know what? We didn't seem to get a good conversation in. So now I'm going to make it 45 minutes, but twice a week. so now on company time, my CEO has fell in love with GOGI. And we have two meetings a week, basically covering the same tool, a weekly meeting basically on the same tool and covering GOGI. And we're a startup, so there's 5, 6 of us, and everyone loves it. Everyone loves it, and especially the CEO. And it has really been impactful, and it's really been helping us, not just with problems at work, but as a typical GOGI meeting, without revealing anyone's information, people talk about their personal problems as well, and applying the GOGI tools to their personal lives. So I really want to reiterate that out of this group of employees, I am the only one who's formally incarcerated. However, we always talk about GOGI and how it should be taught to children and how people coming up. And none of these other people that I am teaching the GOGI tools to are formally incarcerated. And they are just so happy and learning and applying. And when I hear someone who's never been incarcerated, they're applying GOGI tools to their personal lives with their spouses or their significant others, or into a work issue, or into their own personal limitations that they set on themselves, applying what if they make the right decision on this other thing. And it has just been amazing. And I just couldn't be happier. And just to reiterate again to everyone, GOGI tools apply to every facet of your life, not just to your incarceration. It's a way of life.
I think maybe the CEO saw within you a spark or a light, or they observed you long enough to say, wow, this guy seems happy. He's showing up to work on time. He has initiative. He is pleasant to be around. We need more of that. Do you think part of their interest in GOGI was how you showed up as a solution? They observed you. Did they see something in you that had them inquire?
No, absolutely. I definitely think that that's the case, because our CEO has talked about their previous experience, such as your own, that they had volunteered in prison, and they had noticed that people who had done a lot of work on themselves, they had something different. And when they hired me, they said that there's something different about you in the way you present yourself and the way that you handle issues and the way you handle problems. And they're like, you've helped me personally. And this is before we started the GOGI groups. So it's kind of like the thing was like somebody sees something in you that they want what you have. And that wanting what I have is GOGI. And not to detract too much from what we're talking about, but for the company wise, they've actually talked about, we actually represent high tech talent and help them through their negotiation process and their careers. So we've talked about starting a portion of our service where we actually help counsel people. So they're like, hey, they're looking at me and they want me to be the counseling person, where it's not just salary negotiation, but we help them on their lives personally. And so basically it would be using the GOGI tools to help our clients. So it's not just helping the company. We're talking about helping the clients as well. And as you said, they've seen something in me that they believe that I'm capable of helping not just our fellow employees, but also providing value to our clients and helping them with their issues.
I love how you are showing up as a solution in your community. And our community can be the cellie, the community can be the person that goes to education with you or the person that meets you in the chapel. Community can be your family, or community can actually be your place of employment. And I think a lot of people forget that. They think that place of employment is a place to go get a paycheck so you can have a life. But I think what you've done is you've brought your life into the place of employment, and that too becomes a community. Is that right? Is that how you perceive your place of employment?
Right. No, absolutely. I would say that my work has became a community. But I think when you live by the GOGI tools, and if people see a light in you, and when we see something that someone has, a behavioral trait or something, and we're like, we want that. And people want to know how you got that. And, and then you can share that with them. And you can share that with whatever your community is, whether that's a work, a school, your neighbors, or whatever. People see that light. And I do think, I'm not going to say it's a responsibility, but if you live a certain way, it's going to come out. What's inside you is going to come out. And I would say that when you share that with your community and people see those things in you, it's naturally going to come out. And if you're fortunate enough, and if you love GOGI like I do, and you somehow get to start running groups with people out there, I'm super happy and I'm super excited to share that with my work community. And if I get to share it with our clients as well. And GOGI is about being of service. And if I can be of service to my work, my work community, to our clients and to other people, it's a win-win. And you always help yourself when you teach GOGI. And excuse me, teach is not the word. When you participate and you help facilitate GOGI and you engage in GOGI and you study GOGI, you're continually helping yourself as well as your community.
So let's say you got a guy or a girl and they're sitting on their little 2-inch mattress in their little 8-foot cell, and they're saying, yeah, that sounds good, Coach Patrick McNeal, but you don't know what I've been through. You haven't been through what I've been through. You don't know what it's like at this prison. Talk to the heart and the soul of that person that watched this video all the way through. It's almost 30 minutes. They've watched it all the way to this point. I want you to pretend you're sitting right next to them in that cell. What do you want to say to that person who followed our show up till now, and just speak to their heart for a moment?
Yeah, well, I'd like to tell that person, first of all, that, I was sentenced to 30 to life and supposedly had no chance of getting out. And so you may be sitting there thinking that it's hopeless for you, that there's no chance, that, oh yeah, that worked good for you. Maybe you had these opportunities. Well, over the 25 years of incarceration, I've been to many prisons, some good prison-wise, some bad as far as program-wise. And I've faced those obstacles. I've sat where you've sat. I've had feelings of hopelessness. I've had feelings that, am I ever going to get out? Or can this really work for me? So I've been there, and I would tell that person that what's inside you. And we always talk about going in. Sometimes you can't look for your solutions, or you can't change the outside, but you can change you. So you need to look into yourself. And if you yourself believe that you can become a different person, you can. Whether you just made a mistake 10 minutes ago or whatever, you can change the person you are today moving forward. Now, for me, GOGI was the answer. And I believe that it's the answer for a lot of people if you study the tools and you take them seriously. But look within yourself and don't be discouraged by everything that's happened inside. As I said, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I was in the position where I was never supposed to get out. I was supposed to die there. I was, I had that hopelessness. Appeals denied. So you may be in those kind of situations. You may have got denied at board and think, oh, they were so rough on me. They gave me this many years of denial. I've been there. I got granted parole, and then I had that date taken by the governor after he gave me a commutation, which is unheard of. So I'm just saying the trials and tribulations that you think you face, and when it's looking the darkest, there's always light. You might not think you're going to get out, or you might not think this is possible. It is possible. Change that mentality. Take the steps. Look within yourself and take the steps to do what you have to do to make yourself better and to put yourself into a position that when opportunity comes up, you are prepared to snatch it and take it. And for me, GOGI was that for me.
I love hearing that. You truly epitomize getting out of prison by going in. And now that you're out, you're continuing that service, that our tool, Ultimate Freedom. Being free is up to me. Service sets me free. You are certainly epitomizing how to do that. And I am so grateful that you agreed to set aside some time today so that we could record this and share it with our students. We'll share it on YouTube. We'll also be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as on the tablets. So your words of wisdom and your inspiration will share to many, many people for a very long time. And I wanted to thank you very much, not only for being here, but for the man you have become in utilizing the GOGI Life Tools, getting out by going in.
Awesome. Amazing. And of course, I'm so happy to be here. And I owe so much to GOGI and Coach Taylor and just going through the program. I continue to love it through this day. But so importantly, I want to leave everyone again with that things are not over, no matter how bad or how dark things can seem. It's never over. As long as you have a breath in you to fight, to change, to do what you want to do, it's possible. I'm sitting here today because of what I did in there and what I continue to do today. I earn a good salary. I guess you could say I'm successful. I've people who have never been in. I've surpassed where they are after only being out three years. And I'm not saying that to brag. I just want to talk to those people that are inside thinking that you can't get there. And I just want them to know that they can. And that's where I want to leave you with. Not that I'm all this. I want to know that you know that you can get out and you can be successful. And the answer is within you. And for me, it was GOGI. So go in and you will get out and you will be ultimately free.
And that is it for our show today. Coach Patrick McNeal will continue to educate everybody he works with and inspire you to educate your community just by being present, just by showing up and being the GOGI Life Tools. So if you like this episode, there's plenty more. So click on the dial and get some other notifications, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
GOGI told me this, I got the tools to live by. G-O-G-I, G-O-G-I. GOGI told me this, I got the tools to live by. G-O-G-I, G-O-G-I. GOGI told me this, I got the tools.